This whole situation has been tearing my family apart, and I still can't quite wrap my head around it. I, 36 female, have been married to my husband, 38 male, for over 10 years, and we have 3 beautiful children together. Our oldest daughter, 10 female, our son, 8 male, and our newest addition, a baby girl who's just 3 months old. For years, my sister-in-law, Sarah, 40 female, has been carrying around a lot of jealousy and resentment towards me. We're civil, and we do our best to get along, but she's made comments over the years that have always rubbed me the wrong way. From the beginning, Sarah's made it clear that she envies the life I have. She said it outright. She's always wanted what I have, a strong marriage, stable career, happy family. Not with my husband, of course. She loves him as her brother and nothing more. But she's often talked about how she wished she could find the kind of stability I have. She's been vocal about her struggles in relationships, which finally seemed to take a turn for the better when she married her husband last year. After her marriage, Sarah and her husband decided that they were ready to start a family right away. Unfortunately, after several months of trying, they received the heartbreaking news that she can't conceive naturally. Sarah was devastated. Our entire family rallied around her, doing everything we could to comfort and support her. I wanted to be there for her too. I can't imagine what it must feel like to want something so desperately and not be able to have it. I empathized deeply and did my best to include her in family events and make sure she felt supported. But then everything took a disturbing turn. We recently hosted a family dinner to celebrate some birthdays, and the house was filled with loved ones. My husband and I had worked hard to prepare a great evening, and I felt like things were going smoothly. But in the middle of dinner, Sarah suddenly cleared her throat, put down her fork, and said, "OP, I think it's really unfair that you got to have 3 kids and I can't have any. Your baby is my last chance to raise a child, so I think you should give her to me during the week so I can create a motherly bond with her. You can have her on weekends." The whole table fell silent. My heart stopped. It was like the air was sucked out of the room. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard. Before I could even respond, my mother-in-law gasped. My father-in-law muttered something under his breath, and my husband went red with anger. Then everyone started talking at once. Her husband looked horrified, demanding to know what she was thinking, while my own husband stood up, nearly knocking his chair over, asking her what made her think this was even remotely acceptable. In the middle of the chaos, I took my 2 older kids upstairs. They'd already picked up on the tension, and I didn't want them hearing this conversation or having to process why their aunt wanted to take their baby sister away. My son looked at me wide-eyed, asking if everyone was okay. I reassured them as best I could and told them to stay in the room until I came to get them. When I went back downstairs, the argument was still raging. Sarah's husband was trying to reason with her, but she was adamant. She kept insisting that she had a right to experience motherhood and that I was being selfish for keeping my children all to myself. I couldn't listen to another second of it. I told her she needed to leave immediately and that, until she got help, she wasn't welcome back in our home around my children. That's when Sarah lost it. She started screaming at me, saying I didn't deserve my life, that I didn't appreciate my children, and that I had somehow stolen my baby from her. She said I owed her this opportunity to be a mother, that I was cold-hearted for keeping my kids all to myself, and that it wasn't fair for me to hoard motherhood when she was suffering. It was as if she genuinely believed that my baby was hers for the taking. She was inconsolable, crying and yelling, and nothing her husband or my in-laws said could calm her down. Finally, her husband and my mother-in-law managed to drag her out of the house, but not before she continued screaming that I'd ruined her life. She kept insisting I was the villain here, that my life was a sham because I didn't know how to be grateful for the blessings I had. It was like watching a completely different person, someone unhinged and so lost in her own pain that she couldn't see how inappropriate and cruel her behavior was. Once they left, I sat down with my husband, both of us in shock. We tried to figure out what could have driven her to such a dark place. We know infertility is a devastating thing, and we both sympathize with the pain and disappointment she's been facing. But nothing justifies demanding to take someone else's child or accusing them of stealing the life she thinks she deserves. The hardest part was talking to our kids. After the commotion, they came downstairs, scared and confused, asking why their aunt was so upset and why she wanted to take their sister. My heart broke seeing them try to make sense of it. We tried to keep it simple, telling them that Aunt Sarah was very sad about not being able to have children of her own and that she might have said things she didn't really mean. But I know they sense something much deeper, something unsettling, and it hurt to see that fear in their eyes. Since that night, my family has been a mess. Sarah's husband and my in-laws have apologized to me repeatedly, saying they had no idea she was harboring these feelings and that they'd urged her to get help. But some family members are tiptoeing around the issue, suggesting that maybe I should have been more understanding, that maybe Sarah just needed to get it off her chest. They seem to think it's something I could just brush off, but I can't shake the memory of her shouting at me, accusing me of not appreciating my own children, and somehow believing she was entitled to them. So here I am, questioning if I did the right thing. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister-in-law out of my house and banning her from seeing my kids until she gets help? I understand that infertility is incredibly hard, but I feel like there are boundaries you simply don't cross, and demanding to borrow someone's baby is definitely one of them. This is beyond entitled behavior. It's downright disturbing. Sarah crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. She has no right to demand access to OP's child, and the fact that she did so in front of everyone shows just how deep her issues run. OP did the right thing by kicking her out and setting firm boundaries. And now let's hear the community's opinion. OP, I'm so sorry you had to go through this. Not the a-hole. Her entitlement is out of control, and her demands are not only inappropriate, but dangerously unhealthy. She needs serious help before she's allowed around you or your children again. Your family's safety and well-being are your priority, and you did exactly what you needed to. Not the a-hole. Infertility is hard, but it doesn't give anyone the right to demand another person's child. This woman sounds unhinged, and honestly, I wouldn't feel safe around her. You have every right to protect your kids, and you're completely justified in banning her from your home until she seeks therapy. You are doing the right thing for your family. This is heartbreaking, OP. Not the a-hole by any stretch. Your sister-in-law has crossed so many boundaries, and she needs serious professional help. It's one thing to struggle with infertility, but demanding to borrow someone's baby is on a whole other level. Stay strong, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty for putting your family first. Update. Thank you all for your support and understanding. I've been overwhelmed with the responses, and it's been comforting to know that I'm not overreacting and that my instincts to protect my family were valid. After that disastrous dinner, Sarah's husband tried everything to get her into therapy. He was horrified by her behavior and told me he was shocked to see just how deeply her resentment had developed. For weeks, he urged her to see a counselor, to get to the root of her feelings, and to start processing her infertility in a healthy way. Unfortunately, Sarah refused. She kept insisting that I was the problem, that if I had just been compassionate and let her have some time with my baby, she wouldn't feel this way. It all came to a head last week when I heard from my mother-in-law that Sarah's husband had filed for divorce. He couldn't continue in a relationship where she was spiraling into delusion and refusing to seek help. According to him, Sarah became increasingly obsessed with the idea that she could still have a baby if I just let her borrow my daughter. She even started saying that I had stolen her happiness and was refusing to let her fulfill her destiny of being a mother. Her husband said he tried everything to help her, but he couldn't stand by as she continued down this path without professional help. After he filed, Sarah went ballistic. She blamed me entirely, saying that if I had just given her a chance, if I hadn't hoarded my children and shared them with her, then she'd still be married. She sent me a string of messages telling me that I was a selfish woman who had no idea what suffering really is. She kept insisting that I'd ruined her life by keeping my baby to myself. After those messages, I had to block her number for my own sanity. Sarah has now started going through family members, trying to rally sympathy, claiming that I've stolen her last chance at happiness. My mother-in-law has tried to mediate, but even she sees that Sarah's in a dangerous mental space, and she's heartbroken. She told me that she loves Sarah, but she understands why I need to protect my children and that I can't let her into our lives in her current state. As painful as it is to see my family torn apart, I know that going no contact with Sarah is the only option. My husband and I both agree that our priority is the safety and well-being of our children. We're heartbroken for Sarah's situation, but we can't allow her jealousy and desperation to compromise our family. She needs help that we can't provide, and until she seeks it, there's no place for her in our lives. I, 28 female, have never had a good relationship with my mother. She and my dad married young and had 4 kids, me, 2 sisters, 27 female, 24 female, and my brother, 20. My parents' marriage was highly toxic, and they divorced when I was 17 because my mother had an affair with her now second husband. Mother and hubby number 2 have one child together, female 10. Ever since we were kids, my siblings and I have been subjected to my mother's mantra of, "I gave you life, so you should be ducking grateful." From the time we were young, my mother would use the above phrase to gain anything from our sweets, our birthday money, to taking a percentage of payslips when we joined 6th form, ages 16 through 18 education in the UK. My siblings and I have been fortunate enough that our paternal grandparents are well off, and they paid for our university fees, minus my brother who chose not to attend university. However, our grandparents are in declining health and have decided to give us grandchildren our inheritance early so they can watch us enjoy it and not have the stress put on our dad to sort out our portion when their time comes. My brother decided to buy a car with his and save the rest to travel. My 2 sisters are spending it on their growing families. I decided to use my portion for a mortgage deposit and am weeks away from buying my first home. My mother is enraged at our choices. When she found out that her ex-in-laws had given us all money, she yelled at how it was unfair that our younger half-sister missed out and how we have a rule that she gets a percentage of our inheritance because I gave them life and they need to learn to be ducking grateful, and then extended it, saying how we never appreciated her sacrifices for us, how we butchered her body, drained her mental state, and caused her divorce because our dad was too focused on us rather than paying attention to her, which caused her to cheat. I snapped at my mother and told her to shut the duck up. I told her that we didn't ask for her to bring us into this world because she chose to have kids, and if I had the chance to change who my biological mother was, I would, because she's always been a crappy one. Now she's telling the family that I don't appreciate her struggles with parenting, and I've upset her so badly that she's unable to focus on areas of her life that need her. For example, my half-sister, her job as a nurse, etc. My siblings sided with me, but our half-sister has sent me texts saying I need to say sorry for being mean. My stepdad, not the word I want to use, has called me an a-hole for speaking to my mother harshly. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your mom is toxic, and she'll likely royally duck up her youngest daughter by making her believe she's a victim of your grandparents' generosity. Your mom's affair partner needs to sit down and shut up. Your half-sister is not related to your grandparents. She deserves nothing. Your mother is way off base here. Your mom cheated on their son. Your paternal grandparents are probably not her biggest fans. Your mom can go pound sand, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. You're absolutely correct. She gave life to you, that's correct. But that doesn't mean that you are her slaves. She failed you as a parent, didn't provide for you, didn't show you any love or support. She's a vampire. Get some garlic and keep her away from your life. My father passed away a few weeks ago after a very short and unexpected illness. As he was given a time frame of how long he had left, he went straight into end-of-life care once diagnosed. He managed to get a will in place, and his estate is very straightforward as he didn't owe any money. Since his girlfriend found out that she is a beneficiary of the will, she has begun to act really strange. She's trying to organize his affairs, which I have already done as I am executor, and it's causing confusion. She has now started showing up at his house and throwing and clearing stuff. This makes me feel uncomfortable, and also my siblings. She doesn't let us know she is going, but has slipped up a few times in conversation that she has been there. The last time we were all there, I organized it. I made it clear that until we are all available to meet at my dad's to sort through his belongings, nothing leaves the house. Sentimental stuff is personal to each person, so would rather my siblings take stuff that reminds them of their relationship with dad, as it's different to all of us individually. I went there today. She only informed me this morning that she went yesterday and cleared a few bits and pieces out. Irritating, as I'd asked her not to, but let it slide. When I arrived today, I couldn't gain access, as she had bolted the door with a key I don't have in my possession. Because my dad didn't use that bolt, he used the 2 others. It's making us all really uncomfortable that she is going as she pleases and removing stuff. She took his spare car key to start his car, but has now taken that back to her home, which is 1.5 hours away on a clear run. I didn't give her permission to take this. I understand she was his girlfriend, but she was never given a key to his house whilst my dad was alive, so I don't appreciate her just using it now. She was the last person to pick my dad up from the hospital, so this is how she has a key, as he had them on him. The spare car key I'm assuming she found in the house. I've included her in funeral arrangements and wouldn't leave her out of clearing the house, but she's getting to a point where she is doing that to us. Would I be the a-hole if I changed the locks and explained to her my reasons why? I'm happy for her to meet me there should she need anything. She has no personal belongings there, so I'm struggling to understand why she needs to be there. I also don't want to feel pressured into getting stuff sorted. We only had the funeral this week gone. Edit. Sorry for any confusion. She is a beneficiary, not the beneficiary. There are 6 total. Removing anything from an estate without permission from the executor, even if she is listed in the will, is theft. You need an estate lawyer, and she needs to be sent a cease and desist as well as ordered to return the stolen items immediately. Change the locks, and tell her you'll be taking legal action against her as the executor if she enters the premises again without permission and doesn't return every single item she has taken. Change the locks and notify the police that she is trespassing. You are the executor and have legal rights over his estate, and she is stealing. She has no rights to anything until the estate is settled. Talk to the lawyer he used for his will and find out what your rights and responsibilities are as executor, and clarify to her that she will be charged with trespassing and breaking and entering, as it's not her house and the things inside do not belong to her. Do it ASAP, as you have no real idea what she's taken or thrown out. Protect yourself and your siblings, as it seems she is going to take everything she possibly can. My brother died 6 years ago. He left behind a wife and 2 daughters. My brother and his wife never had the best marriage, and she was never close to my family. We adored the girls, though, and spent a lot of time with them and my brother while he was alive. After my brother died, we ended up in court to see my nieces because their mom was shacked up with someone days after the funeral, and she decided if we wanted to see them, we needed to take his kid too. I was granted access to the girls and have never passed on this time. She ended up married to another guy within 11 months of my brother's death, with 2 of his own kids, and she has 2 kids with him. Her family and his family are not involved in their shared kids' lives. Because of this, the kids have latched onto my family. We do not want to be in their lives, though. So we focus on the girls and try to be kind to the other kids, but do not lead them on. Their mom keeps letting them come and acting like we're equally responsible for her other kids. Once, she even used the line that since she didn't divorce my brother, they're his stepkids, and so part of our family. The girls have talked about how weird life is because they're discouraged from talking about their dad at home. They're told they should see their mom's husband as their dad. They're even told they should advocate for their siblings to be included. But neither of them likes that their mom remarried in the way that she did, and neither like her husband. They have expressed jealousy of his other kids who have no contact with him and don't have to be a part of that household. So the older of their half-siblings is turning 5 soon, and when we went to pick up the girls, he came out and asked why I wouldn't be at his birthday party, and I told him he should ask his mom to explain. She came out and he asked her, which is when she told him I needed to be invited. So he turns around and asks me to come. I told him I couldn't make it. He asked why, so I said his mom would need to tell him. I didn't want to drag it out with the kids, so I left with the girls quickly. One was held back by her stepdad, but was coming out as all this happened at my car. I got several messages after saying I was the a-hole for making her answer for my cruelness. I think it would have been worse for me to say anything, but I want others to judge. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your late brother's wife clearly needs to learn that she cannot force her blended family on everyone involved with any part of that family. You've been very clear on this. It's not your fault she thinks she can make you do things her way by cruelly setting her own child up as a pawn. Yeah, kinda. All the kids are innocent. Go to his party as he obviously wants to be a part of your life. Consider it bonus nieces and nephews. They are way too young to understand the dynamics at this point and could be really hurt by you sliding them. Why is it his mother's job to explain why you won't go to his birthday party? He point blank asked you to your face. You should have just said, "Oh, thanks for inviting me, but I'm already busy that day." If he asks you again why you can't come, tell him you've already agreed to be somewhere else that day. If he's a persistent 5-year-old and asks you what you are doing, tell him you're doing secret grown-up things, and it's not nice to ask the same question 3 times and then change the subject. Yes, Mom is going to have to explain some things to these children about the big picture, but it's not her job to explain why you aren't coming to a birthday party. Own your own stuff. Soft yes the a-hole. My half-sister decided she didn't want to eat animal products when she was 6, and has stuck to it. I'm not even vegetarian, and neither is anyone else in my family, but I do feel like I influenced her because when I'm not with my dad, stepmom, the other 70% of the time, I'm living with my mom, stepdad, on my stepdad's little farm with other farms nearby, so I think a lot about food and where it comes from, and explained it to her when she asked. My stepmom was annoyed when she became vegan because of the inconvenience, but is mostly good with it now. She'll tell restaurants she's vegan and mostly cook vegan foods for her. She makes sure she still gets all her nutrition and talks to her doctor and stuff, and she definitely doesn't give her meat. But sometimes she'll sort of cheat, I've noticed, on the butter, cheese, dairy stuff. Not in obvious ways, but like cooking something with a little bit of butter, because she doesn't want to make a separate portion for my half-sister, or giving her a packaged product that has a small amount of one of those products in it. My half-sister can read labels, but she doesn't know all the words used to mean animal products like rennet. I had noticed before that she would still give her foods with gelatin, and because my half-sister is a kid, she still likes candy. One time I started to tell her that something had gelatin in it, and my stepmom made the stop talking motion, so I stopped. But now it's been like 3 years, and she's older, so we were together and she was eating something, and I was like, "You know that has gelatin in it, right?" And she was like, "What?" And I said it was an animal product, and she freaked out. She then was like, "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" And her mom was like, "Gee, sweetie, I didn't know," but clearly did, and was pissed at me. And now she's looking into other hidden stuff that's actually animal-based, and probably going to start refusing to eat that too, which is more annoying to my stepmom because it just makes more work for her and is inconvenient. I'm torn on this one. People deserve to know what they're eating. But at the same time, it's exceptionally frustrating and financially hard when you are responsible for feeding someone and paying for that someone's food, and that someone up and decides to refuse to eat a certain food. I get it when there's a dietary restriction, but as far as I'm concerned, if someone is making your food, you take it or you leave it, and if you don't want it, it's up to you to figure out what you are going to eat instead. A household isn't a restaurant, and your parents are not your personal chefs. Not the a-hole. She definitely deserves to know. I was a vegetarian in high school and didn't know that some Caesar salads have anchovies in the dressing until my cousin's wife told me. No one was pissed. I was grateful. Yes, the a-hole. You're not the one making and paying for doctor's appointments to ensure their child is properly nourished. You're not the one preparing multiple meals to ensure they're fed 3 times a day. You're not the one taking on the physical and financial burden and responsibility for this. If it was because of dietary restrictions, that would be one thing. But she's still dependent on her mom to both pay for and make her meals, plus ensuring those items aren't animal products. You're on a high horse trying to be your sister's vegan savior, but when that's all said and done, you move on with your life, and your stepmom picks up the pieces. Seriously, mind your business. It wasn't like she was giving her chicken and telling her it was tofu. She gave her gelatin, used a bit of butter, etc. that would make her life easier. How about you try and purchase and cook your stepsister's meals before you get all high and mighty about what her mom gives her? My mom and stepdad got married when I was 1 year old. My stepsister was 7, and most of my life I was afraid of her. She has, later diagnosed, bipolar disorder, and as she got older, she got worse. She ruined my life. Everything that I owned growing up was either destroyed or she took. She'd even find a way to ruin my friendships, relationships, but my mom and her dad would always tell me she can't help it. It came to a head when I was 15. She gave my hamster away, and then when I made her feel, she trashed my room for the 100th time. It got to the point I had to leave all my school stuff and clothes at my neighbor's house so she wouldn't ruin them. And before anyone asks, after years of therapy, I now know I was manipulated by my mother to not tell my dad so he wouldn't go for full custody and she wouldn't get her huge check to spend on my stepsister's treatments, which they, mom and stepdad, spent every penny on. My neighbor told my dad the whole situation. Long story short, he got full custody, and I've not talked to her in 10 years, before the other day. Recently, I've started having a relationship with my mother again and letting her get to know my 2 kids. Male 2, male 4 months. She and my stepfather keep bringing up meeting my stepsister so she can be an aunt, saying she's way better now and wants to see my kids. I told them in no uncertain terms that I do not want her in our lives. Wednesday, I stopped by my mother's house, and my stepsister was there with her preacher husband. Apparently, she found God. She tried to hold my baby, but I told her no. Then she busted out into tears. Apparently, she can't have kids of her own. And in one of my petty moments, I told her it was karma due to everything she put me through. Then, she and my mom tried to explain that it was the BPD and not her, and I'm an ableist for holding it against her. My boyfriend got me out before I could even think of anything to say. Basically, now I'm a bad person all over again, and my mom wants nothing to do with me. Again. Not the a-hole. Your mom is the biggest a-hole for not protecting you. Not the a-hole. Mental illness can be an explanation for behavior, but it isn't allowed to be used as an excuse. Part of her therapy should have been learning to respect the boundaries of others and take ownership for anything she does or says, regardless of whether it was during a low moment. Clearly, she needs to continue working on herself. Stay away from her, and keep her away from your children. Not the a-hole. It's probably better for you to continue to keep them out of your kids' lives. They aren't going to change, and won't stop pushing her onto you and your family. Be unlike your mom, and put your kids first.